In American society, money is a taboo topic. We're taught at a young age it's improper to talk about it, but we're also bombarded with messages about the power and importance of money in our everyday lives. And by not talking about it, we miss out on the skills and lessons we need to effectively understand and financially plan. That changes today. Welcome to Money Tales. Hosted by Sandy Brager and Cami Doder, Money Tales brings more than 35 years of combined professional experience in personal finance to demystify money and demonstrate what it's like to speak openly about personal financial matters. Join us each episode as they interview modern-day movers and shakers about how money decisions intertwine with their daily lives in order to give you better insight into productive financial conversations. Subscribe today and register for our blog Fathom at aspiriant.com/podcasts to increase your money mojo. And now, here's Cami and Sandy.
When people talk about climate change, they're focused on saving the planet. This episode is about the economic possibilities that addressing climate change can open up. For Tito Jankowski, our guest on Money Tales, climate change isn't just a crisis, it's one of the biggest opportunities of our time. When he looked at the scale of carbon removal needed, he saw a $1 trillion industry on the horizon. Tito realized this global challenge could be a launchpad for innovation, impact, and massive business growth. It's about shifting from fear to possibility and building the future we actually want to live in. Today, Tito is the founder of AirMiners. AirMiners has accelerated 200 carbon removal startups, which have collectively raised $200 million and successfully sold 93 million of carbon removal.
Here are 3 key money topics Tito hits on in this conversation. First, what it was like to use Kickstarter in 2009 to fundraise for his biotech startup project. Second, carbon's redemption story, from climate culprit to valuable resource in construction, agriculture, and water treatment. And third, how one money conversation with a friend revolutionized Tito's approach to personal and business finances. Now it's our pleasure to bring you Tito Jankowski's Money Tales.
Welcome to the Money Tales podcast. I'm Cami Doder.
And I'm Sandy Brager. Cami, something we talk about from time to time on Money Tales is needs versus wants. It's a question that comes up oftentimes for people who are trying to take control of their lifestyle. Do I really need this in my life if I'm about to spend some money, or do I want it? It is also a concept that comes up with parenting children. That's a really nice way to help kids learn about money. You're laughing.
I need this, Mom. I need it. It's in our household. And you're like, no, you want it.
So need versus want. I am thinking about this with fresh eyes because I saw a documentary film yesterday entitled, Do I Need This? That wrestled with this question in a way that I hadn't really thought about it before. The filmmaker, who is local to Northern California, was looking at this question in the context of her aging parents and them needing to downsize and ultimately dying and having so much stuff that they needed to get rid of. And I say get rid of in quotes because the filmmaker was torn when she was helping her parents downsize their home because she was going through all these objects and things she was used to seeing. And she was feeling those things as a connection to her parents. And her mother was suffering from dementia. And so she was hanging on to these things. As the film explored this concept, what became very apparent is that many Americans have so much stuff. We're using our garages that are meant for cars to just put stuff in there. And we're collecting stuff that we don't tend to ever use and we lose track of. And then at the end of our lives, we assume that that will be valuable to someone else. And if they have that connection to the thing because of their connection to us, maybe that's the case. But most of the time, no one wants your old stuff. And so people end up needing to spend a lot of time and money getting rid of the stuff.
Isn't that ironic?
That has some environmental implications as well. It was interesting to me because, again, I think about the needs versus want at the time of purchase or the time of contemplated purchase, as opposed to thinking through the whole lifestyle of what it is I might be needing so badly and wanting to buy that might just hang out in my home for a while and then it gets discarded or get stored. And some people go beyond their garages. They actually pay money for storage units. I thought that was really fascinating. Do you ever think about needs versus wants from that longer term perspective?
I don't, but as you're talking, the emotions that went through me are really interesting. I started as a parent. My perspective as a parent and my kids coming to me and saying that they need such and such, or they want something, but they want a lot. Then you were talking about the filmmaker and her mom. And we are talking with our mom about there's so much stuff in the house. We feel like if she got decluttered, it would free her a little bit. So what could she throw away? But she's really attached to it. Then you started talking about the garage. And then I really put the lens on me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have a lot of things that I just hold on to because maybe I'll use them one day. It's so interesting. I found it very emotional.
It can be very emotional.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to be pondering needs and wants. And I probably need to, every time I go to purchase something.
It's that long-term calculation of what is the true cost of this item and how does it compare to the value I'm placing on this?
Wow, Sandy. Maybe our guest this week has some perspective on that question. Welcome, Tito Jankowski, to the Money Tales podcast.
Hi, great to be here. Nice to see you, Sandy. Nice to see you, Cami.
Nice to see you. Would you start us off with a brief introduction and share a couple pivotal moments that have taken place in your life that impacted who you are today?
So who I am, Tito Jankowski, the CEO of AirMiners. We are an ecosystem for figuring out how do we reverse climate change. That is a massive undertaking. And so, of course, we have a startup accelerator, we have a community event series, we have an investment fund, all of these towards this goal of how do we suck carbon dioxide out of the sky that's been put there, which is what every climate model says we need at this point, is reducing emissions and taking carbon out of the sky. A pivotal moment for me was I was watching the Oscars with a friend of mine. This was in 2016. My background's engineering, specifically biomedical engineering, but I was watching the Oscars and Leonardo DiCaprio got up on stage and he gave the thanks, mom and dad. And then he said, climate change is real. And that just floored me because I was like, everybody knows that it's real. Also, Al Gore solved it. I saw the documentary. This thing's already taken care of.
I feel like we're living that documentary today with all the fires.
It was a real shock at that point. I was just like, I thought this was handled. And so then I started digging into it. And that is where all the work that I'm doing now came from, that shock, that moment of oh, wow, that can't be right. Not that it's not right that climate change is happening, but in the sense of that it's still something that needs to be talked about, needs attention. And what I found is, boy, it really does. So I dove in.
Let's hear a little bit more. But before we do, will you tell us a little bit about growing up? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up on the big island of Hawaii.
Oh, tell us, Tito, as you were growing up, when did money start having meaning to you?
I was 6 or 7. It's Hawaii. And so we had this beautiful yard with lots of plants and flowers. And I got this idea of, I wanted to make flower bouquets and go and sell them to all of our neighbors. So money came up there because people would give me money for the flowers. But as I'm thinking about it now, it was very much like, we have these incredible flowers. I'm going to go take them around the neighborhood and make sure that our neighbors get a chance to check these flowers out.
But you weren't giving them away. You were selling them.
That's right.
What were you going to do with the money, Tito?
I didn't have something I would do with the money. It wasn't like, I'm going to go buy a thing with this. I wanted to take these flowers and I wanted to go have some exchange beyond just giving the flowers away. Didn't have a plan for the money.
Was your family talking about money at the time?
My family definitely talked about money. Money came up. My parents were both oil painters. A piece of that for many artists is how do we sell these? And so that's how it was for them. Money was part of the equation. Money was like how you got paint and canvases and supplies. That's what money was. It was like this way to keep painting.
So you had this awareness from your parents of you need money to keep doing what you're doing. How did you bring that forward into your life as you began to build your own independence from your parents?
A moment that comes to mind is graduated from college. I'm in the process of figuring out, I want to go to California. I want to start a biotech company. This funny thing starts coming up. I've already built a lab at my university. I've done a lot of biotech research. I've got an idea of, here's something that I could create, that I could build. But then suddenly realizing I don't have a lab in California. I have this lab here in Rhode Island. How do I solve for that? That's when money really came up as I started doing job interviews. I want to be in California. I'll be starting a biotech company. But clearly in the first phase of that, I need to find a job. That was a key money moment. Here's a vision I have for how I want things to come together. And hey, money's going to be a piece of that.
So you wanted to make the world better with an idea you had on the biotechnology side of things. You wanted to get to California. You needed money. So you get a job, presumably, that takes you to California. Then what? What happens, Tito?
I get to California. I've got this job. I have an apartment where I have tons of space. The next apartment has a garage.
Are you putting stuff in the garage?
Yeah, stuff in the garage. Exactly. Biotech lab. I came across a guy in Silicon Valley once who had a warehouse full of biotech equipment. And it literally was like he was climbing up on top of different things. He'd be like, oh, hey, I want that thing up at the top of the pile. Anyway, that's somebody else's garage, not mine. And then soon I was meeting people in San Francisco specifically and Mountain View who wanted to be a part of this and wanted to figure out how do we make biotech tools for people all around the world. That was the early days of Kickstarter. This is 2009. We ran the first biotech project on Kickstarter for an open source PCR machine, which is these days people have a bit more knowledge about PCR machines, but it was a DNA copy machine. So if you ever had like a PCR COVID test, that's from a PCR machine. But money came up for that because it was like, all right, we want to build these machines and we don't really have any customers yet. How do we find customers? Oh, and how do we find money? And it was like, okay, let's go on Kickstarter. And Tim O'Reilly picked it up. He's the guy who coined Web2 and he has O'Reilly Media and he picked it up and shared that with all of his followers in that point.
We picked up your Kickstarter campaign and promoted it.
Yeah, he sent it out to all of his followers and his people. And it was just like, bing, bing, bing. We're getting all these people around the world who wanted to buy do-it-yourself PCR machines.
Wow.
How much did you guys raise through Kickstarter?
It was $12,121, if I recall. It was like sort of like a repeating number thing.
Oh my gosh. So then what did you do?
Then we took the money and built some PCR machines. This little box costs $30 and that little box costs $20. And then worked on how to turn that into a business so that we could sell PCR machines all around the world.
And did you do that?
Eventually, yes. We sold like 20 of them. I had left my job at that point.
So there's some parallel pathing so you could get the money in the door and then you decided this is a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Get the job, go to California, get things off the ground enough that it's like, all right, cool, this might actually work. And then put my job on pause. We didn't sell enough PCR machines in that early phase. The company continued, PCR machines continued to be on hand, and that grew slowly. And I joined up with another company that was making a medical tricorder.
Was it a startup?
Yeah, so that was then me joining a startup called Scanadu.
Let's now fast forward to watching the Oscars. You're an entrepreneur, you're building these businesses, you're inspired. Tell us a little bit about that. That's a bold mission you set out in 2016 to solve or to help solve our carbon issue. Were you driven by money ever?
I think climate change is a giant money opportunity in many ways. And if I look back at what was going on through my head, as Leonardo said, I'll call him Leonardo, my friend.
You call him Leo.
That's right, exactly. Leo.
Leo and I were chatting afterwards.
Exactly. I didn't think this was something that was needed, but I also didn't think it was something that was kind of available. The opportunity to work at a level of an entire planet. There's this whole system of the whole planet. And the message I kind of got was, oh yeah, this is taken care of. But then hearing, oh, it's not. There's actually this giant opportunity to go discover this. It's a giant adventure. It seems like if we can pull back and we see this climate thing as a opportunity for many, many people around the world, for billions of people around the world, then maybe that's the shift that would then really unlock the change that people have been talking about my entire life. I mean, even in elementary school in Hawaii, they're still talking about, hey, there's this place with polar bears and ice and things aren't the same as they were. And just to see, oh, wow, this could be something that could really move things in the direction that I want them to go in. I see that they need to go in.
When you say that it would have opportunities for everyone, do you mean opportunities in terms of sustaining life on Earth, or are there economic opportunities for all of us?
Specifically economic opportunities in the sense that you're talking about food, water, energy, transportation. We need different ways of doing those things. That's an economic opportunity for everybody on the planet.
And how are you going about making that vision a reality? I think it's very compelling that you're looking at it from an economic opportunity perspective. And I wonder how you're going about pursuing that economic opportunity.
Going back to that moment with Leo, if the other ways, the non-economic, where you should just do this because it's the right thing to do, like if that had worked, I would be continuing on some other pathway. Having heard about climate and the environment for most of my life, and then seeing that way of going about it didn't actually get it all the way where it needs to go. The way we're going about that comes back to the company name is AirMiners. We're mining carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. I remember starting with this. You can make diamonds out of carbon dioxide pulled from the sky. And even just that as a concept, regardless of the climate impact of it, even just that as I had no idea that this thing that we kind of look at as bad, as carbon is bad, that instead it could be actually something that I like diamonds. How about you?
I was blown away. I listened to your TED Talk and all these things that we can use carbon beyond just getting rid of it. One was like strengthening cement. You were explaining all these ways that we can turn it into some economic producing engine or something that can add value. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? And once again, so AirMiner has been around a long time, 8 years, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Overall, what we've seen is there's a climate perspective, which is there's a lot of carbon in the air. There's billions of tons, which just refers to like the amount of carbon dioxide that's in the sky that needs to be somewhere else. And on the other hand, you have things that you can do with carbon, building materials, making soils better for crops, improving water retention, improving ocean health, ecosystem health, lowering the cost of water treatment. These are all things that carbon can be used for. And let's make sure we're doing all of those things. Because in addition to doing all those things, there's also just a lot of carbon that we just plain need to take out of the atmosphere and out of the system. In terms of our model, we've been fortunate to apply for grants and work with philanthropies to get our accelerator program built. We've had over 200 companies now graduate, 200 startup companies working on carbon removal. They've raised $200 million as of today.
Congratulations. That's a lot.
Thank you. It's wild. They've sold $100 million worth of carbon removal credits on top of all the other economic products that some of the companies are making. I've got my New York Times here from September. This is Carbon Run. They're on the front cover. This is a company that's improving river health, making it better for fishing and for fish, and removing carbon at the same time. They were on the cover for a $25 million deal that they were unveiling. And this is one of our graduates.
You've created an accelerator for companies who are looking to mine carbon from the atmosphere and do something with it. Are you making investments in each of these companies that go through the accelerator, or is that just your opportunity to see them and decide if you're going to invest along the way?
The model that we've built out was really around, we wanted to see this impact. We wanted to see these companies get started. So we built the accelerator. Effectively, along the way, we're looking at how do we monetize this? How do we turn this into an engine that can keep running? We started investing in the companies. I raised a fund. We've invested in 20 of the companies that have gone through our program. The carbon removal credits aspect of carbon removal is so key. Now we're working on how do we bring in more customers to purchase products and carbon removal credits from all of these startup companies. And so we're creating a buyers club, which is about finding people around the world and companies around the world who want to take action on reversing climate change and giving them the support and the tooling to make that happen. I was talking about this on a panel over the weekend, but we see some of the earliest companies participating in carbon removal, got Fortune 500 companies. They're doing it because there's this climate benefit and it's in line with their climate goals, but also it's a component of their business. Companies like Stripe and Shopify creating payment platforms for every transaction on earth to happen. Hey, adding carbon to that just seems like something that's probably going to be a component of the future, is that we're going to need to account for this carbon stuff at some point. If we're the transaction platform for the planet, then you should probably be accounting for carbon and things like that.
How do you define success as you're going through this amazing, pioneering business?
It's super easy in carbon removal because it's tons of carbon that get removed. That is the top line metric. It's not the only one. There's too much carbon in the atmosphere. We need to stop putting so much in, and we need to take out. And we're working on that taking out piece. And so it really comes down to how much carbon have you removed?
So it's a very altruistic response, which I appreciate as a member of this planet. It makes me wonder, Tito, are you motivated by money here for yourself? Is there a financial success that you're looking to build, or is it really just to help move things forward for human beings and other species?
I think it needs a financial model. When we think about having a balanced planet, I'm very much in the camp that like capitalism seems to have worked to a certain degree. And like if we can get that structure working for the climate, then things get balanced. I think for me personally, is there a opportunity for money there? When I look at the numbers for the scale of carbon removal that's needed, it looks like a $1 trillion industry 25 years out. Can we be a part of creating that $1 trillion industry? And can we benefit from that as a business? Can we grow with that industry as it takes off?
I'm going to guess you think yes.
Absolutely. The investments that we're doing, supporting up and coming corporate buyers, all of those things, if you think about, hey, we're building this $1 trillion industry and we're part of the hundreds of companies that it's going to take to do that, that means that this is a massive opportunity for anybody that's investing in carbon removal.
Are you doing things with your money outside of climate and carbon in particular?
We bought a house, so that's a money thing.
That is a money thing. In Northern California, that's a big money thing.
In Northern California, I went down to see my friends last weekend down in LA. So that's a thing, going out to restaurants and traveling and all that. I bought a guitar amp recently. I love to play music, and so that's in there.
In your relationship, do you talk about money?
Oh, yeah. Once a month, we re-up on all our financial stuff, all the transactions or whatever they're called, payments we did, where they go and which ones we need to split and things like that.
How do those conversations go? Are they mechanical? Do they help bond your relationship?
At this point, what we find is they're often surprising. Here's a funny thing that's happened, and it seems like it's totally a coincidence. We've done it for 2 years now. We do it every month, but then at the end of the year, we go back and look and we're like, how did my partner and I spend for the things that we didn't track, where it's like, okay, you pay for this thing and I pay for that thing. They add up to almost the same over a whole year. It's just this totally informal thing of like, did you bring your wallet? You know, like it's like that. And then when we look at this over the whole year, we could just stop tracking it. I'd be curious, what if you did stop tracking it and then it did change?
I'd be curious how the feelings would change. If you don't know the answer, then would they change or would they not?
And that's what comes up more on the month scale is there's months where we're like, oh man, I've been spending so much money and I'm going to get paid back some money at this point. And then you're like, oh no, we both spent more money than we thought we did. Nobody's getting any money back. It's funny how for a computer, you have random access memory, RAM. My memory is on money is it can be so wildly, wildly off. That's what we get to discover together every month when we crack open our finances.
And Tito, are you and your partner also looking forward together and planning for the future financially at this point? Or is it more of a reconciliation of what's happened in the past?
We save for like house improvements. We need a new roof. And so we know, okay, we need to save. We don't need a new roof. We know at some point a new roof will be in order. So, hey, let's plan that together. I was talking to my friends recently about not life insurance, but hospital care when you're older.
Long-term care insurance.
Yeah, that. So we're talking about that. That would be cool. A thing you can start paying for now that's just like, you're covered.
I like that you two are getting engaged in that. And even with among your friends, do you find it awkward? Or is it one of those like you feel it's comfortable to talk about money and financial questions?
I think it's different for different people, but it's either really straightforward. Hey, I'm going to Venmo you for this. I went to McDonald's with my buddy down in LA. He was like, oh, I already have the app. So here you go. And I was like, all right, how much do I Venmo you? And he said, okay, dude. But at times that can feel like, are you buying me lunch now because you have the app? And it's like, oh, no, just ask about it. But that's one where you talk about it and work it out. Over the month, you make these expenses, not talking about every single one. And so you sort of get this memory of it that's wildly inaccurate at times.
It's funny how that happens. I know for myself, I'll anchor to one particular transaction because it's either big or it's unusual. And then I forget all the little stuff.
Totally. Oh, I have a money moment that really made a big difference. I want to share that.
Please do.
Please.
I was in the garage after college, building biotech equipment in the garage. The punchline is creating a budget. I was walking in San Francisco with my friend Ari, and I was talking with her about leaving my job, and I have like a blob of money. How does this work? And so we're walking along. She says, the thing that really makes a difference is making a budget, making like a forecasted budget. You just basically take everything that you're spending now. Don't be too conservative or too flashy with the money, but just make a budget. And then you operate by that budget and you check every month. That's how you can make this company work. And effectively, then you're doing the same thing with the business. That completely transformed that blob of money into, I can actually build a business now.
You had a blob of money to start from.
I had a blob of money to start with. Now I have this business creating engine.
And did you create that budget?
Totally. I probably have it on Google Drive somewhere. It's funny because it's probably not even somewhere. I have a budget now, and it may just be that Google file has just been like edited. That would have been 2009, 2010. That is such a powerful tool. Since then, now I've added those expenses that happen every other month. Changing your oil, buying Thanksgiving flights.
Replacing your roof.
Exactly. If you just put that in there, by when does the roof need to get replaced? Okay, sometime in the next, let's say it's 5 years out. Great. So then just put in, here's how many dollars per month that is. If that's in your brain, it can be this thorn, this thing that's like, oh, shoot, the roof. But then you pull it out and you put it in this spreadsheet and I don't know, let's do the math. $10,000 divided by 5 years, so by 12, $167 a month for 5 years. And the roof gets taken care of. That moment with my friend Ari, these things are transformational looking back because you're like, oh, I just kept doing that process and found that really valuable. When I say really valuable, every time I do that, probably like once a year, there's always stuff that in my mind is sort of this particular way. And I look at the numbers and it's like, oh, wow, totally disconnected from reality.
Tito, I really appreciate you bringing to life the feeling you had when it was sitting in the cloud above your head, hanging over you without a plan. And then the feelings that came, so that felt very overwhelming and unknown. But by putting it in the budget, doing the math, it felt attainable. It felt freeing. That resonates with me personally, and appreciate you sharing that story with us.
I like it too, because you're demonstrating that money isn't just dollars and cents. There's narrative, there's reasons, there's a whole lifestyle attached to different pieces of the overall spending pie and income pie as well. Tell us, what is your next money conversation going to be, and who's it going to be with?
My next conversation is going to be with a corporate sustainability leader about joining our buyers club and supporting them to take the climate action that they dream of.
Tito, what a great conversation, and love what you're doing with carbon and climate. It's phenomenal. Would you share where's the best place for listeners to find you?
Best place to find me is at airminers.com. I put out a weekly video update about everything that's happening in carbon removal, the next action that you could be taking for reversing climate change.
Can't wait to check it out. Tito, thanks for joining us on Money Tales.
Great to be here.
Thanks for listening to the Money Tales podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you think would benefit from listening. And leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Your ratings and reviews help more people find our podcast. If you're inspired to gain clarity and peace of mind about financial matters, don't hesitate to reach out to our team at Aspiriant. Go to aspiriant.com/start a dialogue. Or you can email Sandy and me at podcasts@aspiriant.com. See you next time.